Hello and welcome to my MotoGP circuit track list. This is basically, in a nutshell, going to be me going through the 19, I believe, tracks of the official calendar, not including the Kimi Ring, as, of course, the bikes have not been there yet. So I will be simply grading each circuit into 5 different categories. One being God tier, meaning, you know, they are the best. They are the top circuits. Great track, not quite quite at God tier, but still phenomenal racing. Great for the bikes. Everything else taken into it. 50-50. Take it or leave it. Not really bothered. Not bothered at all. Meaning, you know, there's better, but it's not awful. And get rid are the absolute just travesties of the calendar. You know, they have no good features, in my opinion. This is just my opinion. I will clear that up right now. This is not, you know, it's not like a set fact what I'm saying. If you don't agree, feel free to, you know, give me a different opinion. So yeah, this will be my opinion only. This is not, you know, I'm not trying to enforce anything as fact. So all 19 circuits will be put into these categories based on the quality of racing, the design of the track, maybe the viewpoints and overall vibe of what the circuit gives to the calendar. And I think I'll add in a little bit of when it's placed in the calendar affects the quality of track. Now that might seem a bit confusing. However, Qatar as an opening Grand Prix, do I think it affects what people view the circuit as, with it being the first of the season? Yes. Other people might not, but I do. And Valencia the same. Do I feel like a mid-calendar circuit would benefit more so where Valencia is and vice versa? 100%. And I'll go into this a lot more depth as we go through the list. So we will go in chronological order based on the calendar itself, and starting off with Qatar. Now, for me, Qatar, ever since it got brought into the calendar, I think 2007, I want to say, maybe 6. I could be wrong. I think it's 7. I've never been that big of a fan of it. And with it now, I don't think when it first started it was the first Grand Prix, but it is now, as many of you will know watching this, is now the official opening round of the MotoGP calendar. I'm not that big of a fan of it. I wouldn't say it's awful. I would say, you know, it's pretty flat, so it doesn't give us anything in terms of changing elevation, or, you know, it's pretty flat. It's pretty boring on that sense. Corners and design wise, the last corner creates a bit of a lunge, as we've seen with Dovi and Mark, and the long sweeping left-hander provides a pretty good full throttle on the GP, well, on all categories, but in the GP bikes it looks great, and obviously it's the only night race, so, you know, that is a bit of a pro. But again, other than that, I'm kind of clutching at straws. I think the first second section especially, is very basic. It's as if you have very stereotypical circuit parts, you know, basic hairpins, short straights, and just kind of puzzled them all together. I'm not that big of a fan. But would I get rid of it? Probably not. I don't think it's that bad. I think there's worse circuits. But, you know, I wouldn't be that bothered if it was off the calendar. So we'll put it in not bothered to start with. Okay, so moving on. Argentina. Now, when this track first came in to the calendar, I was a little bit skeptical on the design of the track. Looking at it, as we can see here, I was like, is this really going to provide that good a racing? One huge straight and what looks to be a couple of just big hairpins. However, as years have gone on, this track has really grown on me. I don't think it's God tier, and I'm contemplating putting it in between Great Track and 50-50. Something I didn't mention in the Qatar track is the atmosphere is dead. There is nothing going on there. There's one grandstand, and that is it. It's in the middle of nowhere. There's no atmosphere. And then you go to Argentina, and the place erupts. The fans, the passion they have for racing there, which I'm not disputing in Qatar, but the numbers they come out in, bearing in mind that track is pretty much in the middle of nowhere as well. But the grandstands, other than the main straight, are placed quite well alongside the track, especially going into turn 1. So you get that real great grandstand atmosphere like in Sepang in Argentina. I think it's a great track. So for that reason, I will put it in the great track tier. And not only that, I think the final corner, well, the second to last final corner, is very, very well designed, because you have that flip-flop back onto the other side. If you get pushed out wide, you can maybe, just maybe, fire in a lunge if you're on a Moto3 bike, more necessarily so than a GP bike, but still. Those final 2 corners, really late braking, right corner then back onto a tight left-hander. It's an interesting one. I mean, you've only got to ask Davi about that. Okay, so moving on, we have the Circuit of Americas, introduced in 2013 to the GP calendar. And yes, people will probably say, from a neutral point of view, it's very boring. We only see Marquez win there. It's, made for him and nothing really happens. And I know what people are going to think, that I'm going to turn around and say, well, he didn't win it last year, when really, if he wouldn't have crashed, it would have been another Marquez win. However, the track itself has some elevation to it. There's some great sections, especially the first section with the left, right, real quick, fast pace section. A lot of people aren't that big of a fan of it, but personally it's grown on me. Circuit of Americas, I don't think it's as bad a track as what it gets pointed out to be. I don't think it's a rider's favourite, but there are some great corners. I mean, turn 1 is very questionable on both in a car should I say, and on a bike. However, there aren't many corners like it, and you can jump 3 or 4 rows from where you've qualified from going through that first corner. If you maybe take a risk, you could put yourself onto the outside, which fundamentally puts you back on the inside for the second corner, provides great racing. That is something you cannot deny about the track. And you have the huge straight in the, I want to say, 3rd section, is that maybe 2nd section? I'm not sure where it's classed as. I think it's a crossover between the two, but that bunches together a bit of racing, especially in Moto3. And overall, I think the track's quite good. There's a lot of good viewpoints on it. It's modern. It's a modern track. It's got the facilities to be well organised and well kept. So it's not a track that doesn't have the funds to keep going and fund F1 and MotoGP. So they look after it pretty well, and it's a good look. And it's now the only American track on the calendar, which is kind of amazing when you go back to 2013 and you have Laguna Seca, Circuit of Americas, and Indianapolis. To then, if you would have said to me then, we'll only have one American track, I wouldn't have grumbled, but this would be the track out of the 3 I would have kept. A lot of people prefer Laguna Seca because of the corkscrew, but personally, I would go for Circuit of Americas. I think other than the corkscrew, Laguna Seca doesn't have that much to it that I'm amazed by. So Circuit of Americas, I'm going to say 50-50. Okay, Jerez. Now, Jerez for me, there's not much I don't think anybody can say about Jerez that hasn't already been said about Jerez in the past. Final corner, I don't have to say anything. Great track for testing because bit of elevation there. I'm not putting elevation in as though if you don't have elevation it can't be a good track. I just think elevation provides something really interesting as a racer, and when you go to a track and it has elevation, I'm not sure what it is, but viewpoints and seeing the different styles of racing, I don't know, there's something about it. It adds a real good element to a track. Jerez, not too much elevation, but good enough. Anyway, every corner for me at Jerez is a good. I can't name a bad part of the track, other than this weird chicane part that they added in for Formula 1 back in, I believe it was the 90s. I don't know how long that lasted in F1, but we're doing MotoGP, so for that reason, MotoGP Jerez, I don't think you can argue it being in God tier. Maybe great, but God tier for me is a track that always provides amazing racing, is, you know, a great track with many different fundamental parts that you need in a circuit. Atmosphere, tick. Good racing, tick. Great corners, tick. Track design as a whole, tick. Location, tick. It has everything. So for that, Jerez is in God tier. Okay, Le Mans. Now, based on the history of Le Mans, people will instantly say God tier. Now, as much as I don't disagree with that necessarily, because it is one of the tracks that is still on the calendar that has great history, and, you know, throughout the years that MotoGP have gone to Le Mans, it provided great upsets and great racing. As Christopher Mullen clearly showed us in 2007, it has that element to it where you never know with Le Mans. It could rain, it could be great weather, but either way, it will provide something that is special. And that, for me, already puts it in as a great track. The design of Le Mans, the Bugatti circuit, is, I think, what it's classed as now, I think it's fantastic, really. I mean, the first corner being pretty much flat out, and then, you know, going down into La Chapelle and Museum, and those kind of corners are just great historic corners. God tier. Would I put it in God tier? Personally, I don't think I'd put it in God tier. I think it's a fine line between God tier and great, but I think for that, you can't put it in God. I think God tier has to be, you know, the absolute best of best. And for me personally, Le Mans takes great track, but still taking nothing away from it. You know, the fans there are amazing, crazy. The racing there is always pretty good. But for me, there's better tracks. That's the only reason I'm putting it in great, because I don't want to put God tier as, you know, a tier that has 10 circuits in it, because there are some amazing tracks, but then you lose the value of God tier for me. So Le Mans goes in great. Now we have Mugello, and before I even explain, I would like anybody to debate with me why it wouldn't be in God tier. For me, Mugello is the best circuit in the world. Unfortunately, I did not get to go to Mugello this year due to COVID, but oh my gosh, what a circuit. That track has everything, absolutely everything. The scenery, off the charts. I think that and Phillip Island are, you know, 50-50 on who takes the better scenery. The design of that track is unbelievable. I mean, just how they make a start-finish straight is so simple, yet provides a great shot. When you see the turn 1 corner camera, just looking over the brow of the hill, and you see bikes coming over at 210, 215 plus mile an hour, and turning into the first corner, braking on its side, it's just something special. And that's the straight, let alone Arrabbiata 1 and 2 and Scarperia and San Borja Lorenzo and those kind of corners. The track is unbelievable. I mean, the atmosphere there is second to none. They are crazy. They are literally crazy. I don't have anything else to say. Mugello, God tier. Okay, Catalunya. Now, at first, I was going to put Catalunya into God tier, simply because, for me, it's provided the best race of all time. I think 2009 Barcelona, Lorenzo Rossi, personally, is the best race to ever exist. And, people might argue other races before the year 2000 when I was born, but I can only go off what I've watched. I have watched a lot of old MotoGP, but not enough, and I haven't seen any argument that is valid enough to even start a debate that's, a better race than Barcelona 2009. However, personally, I think Jerez is a better racetrack than Catalunya. And Jerez for me was God tier, solid God tier. I think Catalunya is upper echelon great track. The design is a great track. For F1, maybe not, but for bikes, it's fantastic. There are 4 different sections of that track, as there are in every one. And for Catalunya, each section provides a different challenge. So for that, it's great. I'm not a big fan of the renovation that they've done to, I believe it's turn 10, how they've made like a shorter left-hander and they kind of squared it off compared to 2009, where it was more rounded hairpin. I preferred that version. And obviously, after the Louis Salom incident, they made the F1 chicane, which, of course, is suitable for what happened. And I'm glad they've now made it safe enough to go back to the original layout. However, Catalunya, great track, taking nothing away from it. Maybe if it had, I don't know, it just misses that spark. I think it's a fantastic place. On the outskirts of Barcelona, the grandstands are always packed, there's always good atmosphere there. I just think as of recent years, there's just been a little bit something that's missing. And people will argue and say 2019 with the Lorenzo incident, if that puts it as a God tier, then I don't think it really means that the track's up there. But yeah, good track. Assen. Now, for me, Assen is, like Catalunya, is perfect in the design. Very unique track is Assen, and you can't really say there are many tracks that give the kind of racing that Assen brings. I mean, 2018 Assen is, that's debatably one of the best races we've had in the last 5 years, if not the best race. But for me, Assen has a great final couple of corners. The grandstands and the scenery of Assen, amazing. I'm contemplating putting this in God tier, but it's a toss-up between God tier and top great track. I think Assen has a lot of history to it as well. I mean, it's the only track that is the surviving circuit of the beginning of MotoGP and has survived from day dot all the way through. I mean, unfortunately, because of COVID, we've not had it this year, but, not really counting that. That's not really in their hands. So you know what? I think we'll put Assen in as God tier. I think because of the history, because of the racing. I was going to put it in great, but I think I'll put it in God tier. Okay, moving on. We have Sachsenring. Now, for me, Sachsenring gets a lot of unjustified hate in terms of the perspective that people give. Again, people like to complain and say it's a Marquez track. That's credit to the guy, not, you don't have to hate on the circuit. It's a very short track and is, some would say, simple. But for me, I like Sachsenring. I think the waterfall, as I like to call it, I don't know if that's what they actually call it, but The last section is brilliant. I mean, to fly down there pretty much flat out, you've got to have some balls. I mean, that is some credit to every rider that goes through there, because that's got to be pretty scary, not knowing that you can't see what's behind that corner, even though you know what's there. To hit the limit and just keep it pinned is unreal. So for me, I think Sachsenring's alright. Yeah, there's not a big attendance because of the size and the way it's designed. It's very like bowl shaped, if you like, to try and get as much circuit in a small space, which, you know, is a little bit annoying. The first section and second section's a bit slow, and not that that makes a track worse, it's more for the excitement of watching Sachsenring. It kind of takes that little bit of excitement away, for me anyway. But overall, I think it's a good track. I wouldn't like to see it go. I'd like to see the track stay on the calendar, even though I'll put my hands up, I'm not, you know, sitting there egging on Marc Marquez to win every weekend, especially not at the minute. But yeah, I think it's a good track. It's a solid track. So I'll put it in 50-50. But I think that's a little bit harsh. Maybe a great track, but 50-50. Now Brno. For me, Brno, amazing. I really like Brno. Elevation, top chart, like top mark, 100%. I don't want to become, you know, the guy that's sitting here and just judging it all on that, but Brno is very well designed, great scenery, great atmosphere. From an outside point looking in, a lot of the corners look very similar, but every corner is different because the elevation brings that. It's 100% that. The bowl section, that they like to call it, is great for the fans anyway. And not that I'm giving points out for this, but having looked myself, pretty cheap. So they get a lot of fans come from other countries that don't have a track because of the price. So people from Switzerland, Croatia, those kind of countries that are not too far away from Czech Republic go to Brno out of them all, because Red Bull Ring is a lot more expensive, simple as. So people go to Czech Republic for that, and it is one I have been tempted to go to myself. So for me, Brno, great track, simple. Red Bull Ring. Now this track is very split opinion across a lot of people in the community of MotoGP. That is not a secret. Very simple design. Scenery, you can't argue, fantastic. I mean, it's beautiful around Spielberg. However, I think they could have done a lot better job with what they had in terms of redesigning that track, or whenever it was first picked out to be like that. I think with the scenery they have and the Red Bull funding they have with it, I just think they could have done so much better. I really do. I think it's a good track because it provides great racing. Because of the straights, people will argue it's a Ducati track. Yes, it is. But for that reason, it means that everybody else that's not on a Ducati in sections 3 and 4 gain a lot more, because they know that's where the Ducati is weak. So it tightens everything up and brings everything close together. So yes, the design's not great for what they had, in my opinion, but the track they've designed, you can't argue. Every year that we go to Red Bull Ring, you know for a fact that on the last lap there will be a dogfight. I mean, I think I'm right in saying, other than the year that Iannone won in 2016, which I think is the first year they went there, there's been a dogfight every single year. I mean, this year was unbelievable to watch Paul Espargaro dive into that last corner on Jack Miller, and then Miguel Oliveira just comes out of nowhere and just wipes the floor with him. What can you say? So it would be harsh to say that it's not a great track. 50-50, I think that's, I don't know, I think it's a little bit harsh putting it in there, so I'm going to put it at the end of great track. Tell me what you think. Okay, coming into the last few circuits now. My home Grand Prix, if you like, Silverstone. And a lot of people that are British will just say it's a great track because it's British. That's the only reason. Admit it. Just look yourself in the mirror and say, look, that's the only reason I'm saying it's a great track. But I'm gonna now be a hypocrite to what I've just said and say it is a great track because, again, look at every single year. I mean, I'm really disappointed we didn't have it in the calendar this year, but 2019 with Rins and Marquez, what a move. What a move. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. If you don't, 2018, oof, you know, we'll not go there. 2017, brilliant race. I was there, amazing. I was there for 2018 as well, but we'll not go into that. Again, I mean, I can really talk from a spectator's point of view on Silverstone, and for me, there are great viewing points. Track design's, in my opinion, one of the best. Not great in terms of elevation, so there's a bit of people call it, a bit of a pancake track, but I'd argue that a little bit. There is some, granted, not a lot, but I think when you're actually on the track, you do tend to realise that there is a little bit of elevation that would cause people problems. Very pricey though, so me giving credit to Brno and saying, you know what, that gives it a great element. Silverstone is the most expensive race to attend, I believe. I could be wrong, but the most expensive to attend across the whole calendar. So that does play a little part into it because you don't see a lot of people coming from abroad to come to the UK to Silverstone for MotoGP because, hey, you can go to Misano, like I will get into in a minute, for the same price, including your flights and hotel and everything that you paid for to camp at Silverstone. So, but Silverstone, would I put it in God tier? No. Would I put it in 50-50? Absolutely not. So for me, I'm going to put it in great track alongside Catalunya. Now, Misano. I mean, I really, really want to put it in God tier because for me, it is amazing. I love Misano. The design and the artwork that they put into that track, for as well the land that they have, having been to Misano, they don't have a lot of land to build a circuit. I think they've done an outstanding job. I think every section is amazing, off the charts for atmosphere, as you can expect being in Italy. The viewpoints are amazing. I mean, there are certain points, like here on the back street, that if you stand on this banking, you can see pretty much half the circuit, and it's just amazing. The track provides great racing as well. There's always dog fights at Misano, and yeah, I mean, what is there not to like about Misano? I don't know a credible argument that people give to say Misano isn't a good track. Yeah, not much more to say. Misano for me, I'm going to put it in great track. I really want to put it in God tier, but I think that's being a little bit too biased based on the fact I've been. But I'd go again, 100%. I'd go every year. I mean, I'm saying that I'd go to every single track if I could, but Aragon. I don't know how to feel about Aragon. It's grown on me, for for sure. When it first came to the calendar, I can't say I was a massive fan. But, having said that, it's, like I said, it's grown on me a little bit. It is out in the middle of nowhere. You can't say the atmosphere's a 10 out of 10. The racing, the most important part, I'd argue it can be good. It can provide good racing. It just tends not to, in a way. I mean, there's plenty of room for overtaking in terms of the opportunity that the corners provide in the design of the track, for sure. But I think there's better. I think there's a lot better tracks. And if, let's say, a new track was to come into the calendar, which we have been told that there will be, with Singapore, Brazil, and I think Hungary, and even next year maybe a Russia street track. I don't know how that's going to work, but yeah. But for sure, I wouldn't be sobbing if Aragon was to go, I'll be honest. But again, I think they're worse tracks. I really do. I think Aragon is not a fan favourite. I don't think it's a rider's favourite, other than the Spanish people, the riders that, you know, like to race at home. I think if you take that out of it, people aren't that bothered. I'll be honest, I don't think they are. But do I put it in 50-50 or do I put it in not bothered? I have just said people aren't that bothered about it, but me personally, 50-50 I think. I think that's a fair judgment. But I'll put it on the tail end 50-50 because I don't think it's quite Sachsenring or COTA. So we'll put it there. Thailand, get rid. I mean, I'd like anybody to give me a decent argument on why that track deserves a spot, other than the fact that there are great fans in Thailand, because the racing, is it that good? I mean, it's like if Spielberg, I don't know why I'm pointing to Misano when I said that, it's like if Spielberg was, it's like the ugly brother of Spielberg for me. I'm just not that big of a fan of the Chang circuit. It doesn't do anything for me. The design is pretty boring, if not really boring. The grandstands are about, other than the one on the main street, they're about a mile away from the track. It's just not that good. I don't have anything else to say. I don't want to completely hate on it, but I'd be happy to see it go, personally. I think there are so many better tracks that could be in the place of Thailand, but I understand there is a great amount of following in Thailand to support that track being there, but ultimately the racing is what I want to see. Do I see it at Thailand? I mean, I don't see racing that I'm like, okay, I'm sitting up in my chair, I'm keen to watch. It doesn't do anything for me. Motegi is very 50-50 with me. I am tempted to put it in not bothered. But you know what? Motegi has provided a spanner in the works. I think the scenery of Motegi is great. It's always great to race in Japan, I think, for the riders, because the fans there are always, you know, they're fantastic. The design of the track, there's worse. There's also a lot better. I think it is 50-50. I'll be honest, I don't think there are many tracks in this calendar that I can sit there and say, get rid of them. They are awful. I think if you ask a lot of F1 fans, I think they'll say there are a lot of tracks I want to see gone. Like Russia and even Catalunya. but I think that's mainly based on the racing side of things because of the size of the cars and the amount of overtakes that they see. We don't do that here, okay? We don't do that. We race over here, this side of the pond. But for sure, I think Motegi is a good track. Do I think it's great? No, I don't think it's a great track, but I don't mind it. So, sorry for procrastinating for about 10 minutes, but I'll put it in 50-50. Phillip Island, absolutely no question, God tier. I mean, every year we go to Phillip Island, you know that it's going to be a fantastic race. The scenery, like I said earlier, is Mugello's cousin. It just is. It's phenomenal. The coast on Phillip Island is stunning. Dewan's Corner, Stoner Corner, they are just iconic corners that are up there with the best on this list. I mean, there's not much more to say. People would argue, based on what I've judged these circuits on, would say Phillip Island doesn't have the fan aspect of it. That's more so because of how many they can actually fit in Phillip Island. But viewpoints, you're up close. There are not hundreds and thousands there. So, you know, you're guaranteed to have a good viewpoint of the racing, which is a pro and a con because, you know, there aren't as many tickets to go to Phillip Island, but if you do go, it's going to be good. It's going to be a great experience. I mean, Lukey Heights as well. It's a track I really want to visit. I think everybody wants to go to Phillip Island, but maybe one day. Sepang, I'm going to put it in God tier. I think a lot of people probably say Sepang is meh, but I think Sepang's outstanding. The fans, brilliant. Malaysian fans, fantastic. The setting, unreal. The viewpoints that you can see around the track are admirable, I think is the right word. But ultimately, the racing, turn 1, round to turn 2, provides the best racing you can possibly get in a first couple of corners for me. I think it's just got that perfect balance of different racing lines, different styles, the aggression, maybe like the dovey side of it. You'd probably allow the door to be open in turn 2, allowing you to do the cutback, and I don't know, it's just Sepang has that it factor in every single category you could vote on a circuit being in God tier. Feel free to let me know why it wouldn't be, but hey, in my tiers, it's staying in God tier. Would I be bothered if Valencia wasn't on the calendar? No, I don't think I would. I think as a last round, what is it offering really? Like what is Valencia giving to the people at home or anybody that's attending Valencia? I don't know, I just don't think it's that good. I think it's very overhyped. And I think it's overhyped because it's the last race of the season. I think if Valencia was in the middle of the calendar like Spielberg or Silverstone or Mugello, that kind of time, I think people would be like, this track doesn't provide great racing. And if you can't overtake at a track on bikes and there's not much else to it that you can say, okay, even though we can't race, there's this element to it, I don't see the reason it should be on the calendar. I don't think it's as bad as Thailand. I'm not putting it on that level. Although people that have been to Valencia will argue it's great to go because when you sit in that main grandstand across this part of the track, you basically see the whole thing, which is good. Other than the last corner, flat. The whole track is completely flat. And I don't know. There's probably, 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, 5, 6 overtaking opportunities in the whole track. For a track that has like 14 corners, something like that. I don't know, I don't see it as a good track, and I wouldn't be bothered if it wasn't in for the year. But I do think it's better than Qatar, so I'm going to put it in the top end of not bothered. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh. Please let me know. Okay guys, that is it for my MotoGP circuit tier list. Now, as I said before, these are my opinions, but if you feel like I've made a huge mistake in putting one of your favourite tracks in the wrong category, please let me know in the comments, and I want to hear other people's opinions. You know, there's a reason that these are in this order for me, and they'll be in a different order for other people, because if all of these circuits were all designed based on these top 5 circuits, it would be a pretty boring calendar, because you've got the same thing over and over again. So I am not hating on these bottom 3 tracks. I just think, you know, maybe sometimes you need a track that's not got as many overtaking opportunities because it'll suit different riders, different teams. You can go on and on and on, but this is my tier list. Feel free to like the video and support the channel, that will help. Please subscribe, and let me know as well if you want to see more tier lists on MotoGP, and I will make more videos on this sort of content, because I can ramble and ramble on, and a lot of people probably don't like that, but I do. So let me know, and yeah, thank you all for watching, and I will see you later.